I let her put on her show. Then, at the barbecue, I spoke up. The laughter froze, and her eyes faltered. The neighborhood finally saw me. The annual block party was supposed to be one of those neighborhood traditions where everyone gets together, grills burgers, and pretends to care about each other's lawn care choices. What I had not anticipated was my own wife Amanda treating it like her personal stand-up comedy routine, with me as the punchline. We had been married for 8 years, and somewhere along the way, she had picked up this habit of putting me down in public. Not the kind of playful teasing that couples do, but genuine attempts to embarrass me in front of others. Today was different, however. Today, she was putting on a performance. "Oh, you should see what he wore to our anniversary dinner last month," Amanda announced to a group of neighbors gathered around the Wilsons' new patio furniture. I told him to dress up, and he shows up looking like he is going to coach a little league team. The neighbors let out those awkward chuckles people give when they witness something uncomfortable but do not know how to escape. I stood there holding 2 plates of potato salad, watching Amanda treat our marriage like material for a roast. "Honey, it was a nice restaurant," I said calmly, setting the plates down. "I wore a button-down shirt and slacks. The same outfit you complimented me on last week." Amanda rolled her eyes theatrically. "See, he can't even take a joke. Everything has to be so serious with him." But here's the thing. I was not angry. I was observing. I watched her play out this little comedy, seeing how desperate she was to get laughs at my expense, and wondering exactly when my wife had decided that respect was optional in our marriage. The afternoon continued like this. Every conversation became an opportunity for Amanda to share an embarrassing story or make a cutting remark. When our neighbor asked about my promotion at work, she chimed in. "He loves telling people about it. It is basically a fancy title for the exact same job. But do not tell him I said that." When someone complimented the lawn, she said, "I practically had to force him to mow it. He would rather spend his weekends watching sports and eating chips." Every comment got a little sharper, a little more personal. Amanda fed on the attention and the nervous laughter. From the way people looked at me, with that mix of pity and secondhand embarrassment, I kept my mouth shut and my expression neutral. Years of dealing with difficult clients had taught me the value of staying calm when someone tries to provoke a reaction. The more composed I stayed, the more desperate her act became. "You are awfully quiet," Amanda said, approaching me near the beverage table. "What is wrong? Can't handle a little teasing?" "I am just listening," I replied. "I am learning a lot about what you really think of your husband." Amanda laughed, but it sounded forced now. "You are being dramatic. Everyone knows we are just joking around." But we both knew that was not true. It was not joking. It was public embarrassment. And she was relishing every minute of it. The neighbors were starting to look uncomfortable. Some made excuses to move on to other conversations. That is when I noticed her, our neighbor from 2 doors down, Rachel, the one who always smiled and waved when she walked her dog. She was watching the whole scene with an expression I could not quite read. Not pity, not embarrassment, but something else. Something like recognition. Amanda was oblivious, still riding the high of her performance. She grabbed my arm possessively and announced to no one in particular, "I better go get us some drinks before he starts complaining about being thirsty too." As she walked away toward the coolers, I felt a presence next to me. Rachel had walked over. "You handle that really well," she said quietly. "Most guys would have lost it by now." I looked at her properly for the first time. She was attractive, of course, but that was not what struck me. It was the way she looked at me, as if she saw something my own wife had apparently forgotten existed. "She is just having fun," I said, though the words sounded hollow. "Is she really?" Rachel's tone was gentle but direct. Because from where I am standing, it did not look fun for anyone except her. Before I could answer, Amanda was walking back carrying 2 red plastic cups and wearing that satisfied expression she got when she felt she had successfully entertained the crowd. She had no idea her performance had been watched by someone who saw it exactly for what it was. The party went on, but something had shifted. I found myself paying attention to other things. The way people's conversations trailed off when we approached, the uncomfortable silences that followed her jokes, and the way Rachel kept glancing at us with that same unreadable expression. Amanda, meanwhile, seemed energized by her earlier success. She was already planning her next act. I saw her scanning the area for the next opportunity to turn our marriage into entertainment for the neighbors. What she did not realize was that her audience was getting tired of the show. 10 minutes later, Amanda announced she was going to hit the dessert buffet and maybe grab some more drinks. "Try not to bore anyone while I am gone," she said with that same forced laugh. Patting my shoulder like I was a child, she was leaving with the babysitter. The second she was out of earshot, Rachel walked up to me again. Up close, I noticed she had this confident way of moving, like someone who knew exactly what she wanted and was not afraid to go after it. "I am going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me an honest answer," she said, positioning herself so we were facing each other directly. "Are you single?" The question hit me like a physical force. Not because it was inappropriate, but because it made me realize what my marriage had become. Here was a woman asking me if I was available while my wife was 50 feet away, probably telling someone else about my latest domestic failure. "Married," I said, though the word felt strange in my mouth. 8 years. She nodded, but did not look surprised. I figured as much. But I had to ask. "You see, I have been watching you for months now. The way you carry yourself, the way you treat people with respect even when they do not deserve it, the way you keep your cool when most men would make a scene." I was not sure where this was going, but I was not stopping her either. "I was hoping you were single because I want to ask you out. Like, really ask you out. Dinner, conversation, the chance to get to know someone who seems to have his priorities straight." The bluntness of it was refreshing. No games, no hints, no dancing around the subject. Just honest interest from someone who saw something in me that my own wife seemed determined to destroy. "That is a hell of a compliment," I said. "But like I said, I am married. I know you are. And I see how well that is working out for you." Before I could respond, she continued, "Look, I am not trying to break up anyone's marriage, but I am trying to figure out how a woman can have a man like you and spend her time making him look small in front of the neighbors." It was a fair question, one I had been asking myself for a good 2 years. "She was not always like this," I said, though even as I said it, I wondered if it was true or if I had just been better at ignoring it back then. "People do not change overnight," she replied. "Sometimes we just start paying attention to things we ignored before." That is when I saw Amanda walking back, carrying a plate of brownies and scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on us. Even from a distance, I could see her expression change. The social smile vanished, replaced by something sharper, more calculating. "Heads up," I said quietly. Rachel followed my gaze and smiled. Not a nervous or apologetic smile, but the kind of smile worn by someone who is perfectly comfortable with who she is and what she just said. Amanda walked up with that forced casualness people use when they are trying to act indifferent to something that clearly bothers them. Well, she said, setting the plate down on the nearby table with more force than necessary. "Making new friends?" "Just chatting," I said. "About what?" The question was directed at me, but her eyes were locked on Rachel. "Actually," Rachel said, stepping forward slightly, "I was just telling your husband what an impressive man you married. The way he carries himself, his composure under pressure. You are a lucky woman." The compliment was delivered with perfect sincerity, but I could hear the subtext. It was a test, to see how Amanda would react to someone praising the man she had spent the afternoon tearing down. Amanda's smile grew even tighter. "Oh, he has his moments, I suppose." "I imagine he has a lot of them," Rachel replied smoothly. "It must be nice to have someone so stable and respectful, isn't it?" Amanda said. "Yes," the word coming out clipped. "Stable is definitely the word I would use." The tension was palpable. Now 3 people stood in a triangle, each perfectly aware of what was really being discussed. Amanda was realizing her performance had been watched by someone who was not buying the act. Rachel was making it clear she saw value where Amanda saw comedic material. And I was in between them, understanding for the first time in years what it felt like to have someone see me as something other than a target. "Well," Amanda said, grabbing my arm with unnecessary force, "I think we should mingle. Lots of neighbors to catch up with." "Of course," Rachel said. "It was nice talking with you both. Truly enlightening." As Amanda pulled me away, I caught Rachel's eye one last time. She gave me a small nod, as if to say, "I see you. Not the man your wife wants everyone to think you are, but the man you really are." The rest of the party felt different after that. Every joke Amanda made at my expense, every little jab disguised as playful teasing felt amplified, because now I knew what it looked like from the outside. Now I had a reference point for what actual respect felt like, and Amanda seemed to sense that something had changed. Although she could not quite pinpoint what, she kept shooting glances over to where Rachel had been. Her act was getting more aggressive and more desperate. What she did not realize was that the audience she really needed to worry about was the one right next to her, the one who was finally paying attention over the next hour. Amanda's behavior escalated. Every conversation became an opportunity to reference our earlier interaction with Rachel. She made pointed comments about women who do not respect boundaries and inappropriate behavior at family events. The irony was not lost on anyone paying attention. She positioned us near the barbecue area where most of the neighbors were gathered, essentially creating her own captive audience. That is when she made her mistake. "You know what is funny?" she announced loud enough for everyone within 20 feet to hear. "Some people come to block parties thinking they can just walk up to married men and start flirting. Like, seriously, have some self-respect." The conversations around us stopped. People looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight and suddenly finding their plastic cups very interesting. But Amanda was not done. "I mean, when you are that obvious about it, it is just embarrassing for everyone involved, right, honey?" She looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to validate her public attack on our neighbor. That is when I decided I was done being a silent partner in this performance. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet group, "I think what is embarrassing is spending an entire afternoon trying to embarrass your husband in front of the neighbors." You could have heard a pin drop. Amanda's face cycled through about 3 different expressions in 2 seconds, settling on shocked outrage. "Excuse me? Did you hear me?" I set my drink down and turned directly to her. "Every conversation today, every story you have told, every joke you have made has been at my expense. And now you want to attack someone for showing me basic respect." I was not attacking anyone. I just pointed out that some behavior is inappropriate. Like telling everyone I do not know how to dress. Like announcing my promotion is not real. Like spending hours making sure every single person here knows how little you think of the man you married. The neighbors were starting to step back, creating a wider circle around us. Some looked fascinated by the drama. Others looked mortified to be witnessing it, but nobody left. "You are being ridiculous," she said, her voice rising in pitch. It was just harmless teasing. "Does everyone know that, really?" I gestured to the crowd around us. "Because from where I am standing, it looks like everyone has been uncomfortable watching you put me down all afternoon." I could see some people nodding slightly. Others looked at the ground, probably recalling their own moments of secondhand embarrassment earlier. "And you know what is truly pathetic?" I continued. "A complete stranger showed me more respect in 5 minutes than you have shown me all day. She saw a man worth talking to, worth knowing, while you played out this sad little routine about how much of a disappointment I am." Amanda's face turned red. Now this woman was completely out of line, flirting with a married man right in front of his wife. She was not flirting. She was honest. She told me exactly what she thought. No games, no hidden agenda. And you know what she thought? That I was someone worthy of respect. Imagine that. The crowd was growing now. People from other parts of the party drifted over, sensing the drama. Amanda noticed it too, and I could see her calculating whether to escalate or retreat. She chose escalation. "So now you are taking her side against your own wife." "I am taking my own side for the first time in years. And yes, if respecting myself means agreeing with someone who sees value in me instead of comedy material, then absolutely. This is insane. You are making a scene over nothing." "I am making a scene?" I almost laughed. "You have been making a scene all day. The only difference is that now someone is calling you out on it." That is when I noticed Rachel had walked up to the crowd. She did not push her way to the front or try to insert herself. When Amanda spotted her, her anger went into overdrive. "Oh, perfect. Your new girlfriend is here to watch the show." "She is not my girlfriend. She is just someone who treated me like a human being worthy of respect. Something you might want to try sometime." Rachel stepped forward then, not aggressively, but with purpose. "Actually, I think I should clarify something since I seem to be part of this conversation." Amanda glared at her. "You need to stay out of this." "I will. But you keep talking about me." Rachel's voice was calm and steady. "So let me be clear about what happened. I approached your husband because I have watched him for months be respectful, kind, and patient with people who do not deserve it. I asked him if he was single because I was interested in getting to know someone with his qualities better." She paused, looking directly at Amanda. "When he told me he was married, I respected that, but I also told him what I saw in him. Because sometimes people need to hear that they are valued. How dare you? How dare I what? Treat your husband with respect? See value in someone you spend your time belittling? Notice that he is a decent man who deserves better than being someone's punchline. The silence that followed was deafening. Every neighbor, every casual observer, every person who had witnessed Amanda's performance earlier was now seeing it called out directly. Amanda looked around at the faces surrounding us, finally realizing that her audience was no longer on her side, and that her show had spectacularly backfired. "We are leaving," she said, grabbing my arm. But I did not move. "Actually," I said, removing her hand from my arm, "I think I am going to stay a little longer. Enjoy the party. Maybe have some real conversations with people who do not think I am a walking comedy routine." The look she gave me could have melted steel. But for the first time in years, I was not intimidated by her anger. I was done being managed, manipulated, and put down for her entertainment. "Fine," she said. "Stay, make a fool of yourself. But do not expect me to clean up the mess when you come crawling home." She stormed off toward our house, leaving me standing in a circle of neighbors who had just witnessed the spectacular implosion of an 8-year marriage. Some looked sympathetic, others looked relieved that someone had finally said what they were all thinking. But the person whose opinion mattered most was standing right there, looking at me with something I had not seen in Amanda's eyes in years: respect. I stayed at the block party for another 2 hours. Not to prove a point, but because for the first time in years, I was actually having fun. The neighbors who approached me afterward did not offer pity or awkward consolation. They treated me like an adult who had finally stood up for himself. One of the guys from down the street clapped me on the shoulder and said, "It was about time, man. We have all been watching this for years, wondering when you were going to say something." Another neighbor, an older woman who had organized the party, pulled me aside and said, "That took guts." A lot of marriages do not survive when one person decides the other is no longer worthy of respect. But it was Rachel who made the biggest impact on my evening. She was not effusive or dramatic. She just said, "You handled that exactly right." No anger, no insults, just the truth. That is rare. When I finally decided to head home, I knew what was waiting for me. Amanda's car was in the driveway, and all the lights in the house were on. She was waiting for me, probably planning her counterattack. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the island with a cup of coffee and that expression she wore when she was gearing up for a fight. The second I walked in, she fired off. "Are you satisfied? Do you feel good about embarrassing me in front of the whole neighborhood?" "I feel good about not letting you embarrass me anymore," I said, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "There is a difference. What got into you today? This is not you. No, today was exactly me. The real me. The version you tried to bury under 8 years of public criticism and private contempt." She stood up, pacing. "Do not do this now. I do not have contempt for you. That is ridiculous." "Really? When was the last time you introduced me to someone without including a joke about my flaws? When was the last time you talked about me to your friends without making me the butt of a story?" She opened her mouth to reply, then closed it. Because we both knew she could not. "I tease you because we are comfortable with each other." No, it is what couples do when they no longer respect each other. And I am done being comfortable with disrespect. So what? You are going to leave me over a stupid block party. I am going to leave you because of who you have become. The block party just made it impossible to ignore anymore. That stopped her pacing. "Leave me? You are talking about leaving me. I am talking about ending a marriage where one person thinks the other exists to be their entertainment. Where I am supposed to smile while you tear me down and pretend it is affection. You are overreacting. People say things they do not mean when they are trying to be social. For 2 hours, every conversation, every story, every joke at my expense was just being social." She sat back down, and I could see the calculation in her eyes, trying to figure out how to spin this and make me look like the unreasonable one. "Look, maybe I went a little overboard today, but you completely embarrassed me in front of everyone by taking that woman's side and making me look like the bad guy. You made yourself look like the bad guy. I just stopped pretending you were not. That is a horrible thing to say. It is an honest thing to say. And after today, I am done saying anything that is not honest." I headed toward the stairs, but she followed me. "Where are you going?" "To pack a bag. I am going to stay at my brother's place for a while." "You cannot be serious." You are going to blow up our marriage over one bad day. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to her. It was not one bad day. It was 8 years of bad days that I finally stopped making excuses for. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can work on whatever issues you think we have. The problem is not that we argue or have different opinions or need better communication. The problem is that you do not respect me. And you cannot teach someone to respect their spouse in therapy. It is something they either do or they do not. I respect you. No, you do not. And the proof is not what happened today. The proof is that you still do not understand why what happened today was wrong. She followed me upstairs, continuing to argue, to justify, to minimize, but I was not listening anymore. I packed a suitcase with the methodical efficiency of someone who had already made up their mind. You are throwing away 8 years because of one conversation with a neighbor you barely know? I am ending 8 years because of what that conversation made me realize about my own life, about what I have accepted, and about what I deserve. And what exactly do you think you deserve? I stopped packing and looked directly at her. Someone who is proud to be married to me instead of being embarrassed by me. Someone who builds me up instead of tearing me down. Someone who sees me as a partner instead of a punchline. I never said I was embarrassed by you. You did not have to say it. You spent an entire afternoon showing everyone exactly how you feel about your husband. I zipped up the suitcase and headed toward the door. She grabbed my arm, the same possessive grip she had used at the party. Do not do this. Do not throw away our marriage because you are mad about a stupid party. I removed her hand gently but firmly. I am not mad about the party. I am grateful for it. It showed me what I was missing, what it feels like to be seen as someone worthy of respect by a random woman who does not even know me. By someone who looked at me and saw value instead of flaws, strength instead of weakness, and who treated me like a man instead of a child she had to manage. I walked down the stairs with her behind me, still talking, still trying to convince me this was an overreaction. But my mind was made up. It had been the moment I realized that respect from a stranger felt foreign because I had forgotten what it was like to receive it at home. At the front door, I turned one last time. When you figure out why treating your husband with contempt is not love, call me. Until then, I am going to remember what it feels like to be around people who actually like me. I walked out to my car, put the suitcase in the trunk, and drove away from 8 years of accepting less than I deserved. In my rearview mirror, I could see her standing in the doorway, probably still wondering how this became my fault. But I was not looking back anymore. I was finally looking forward. 3 days later, I was sitting in a downtown law firm signing papers that would officially end my marriage. My brother had recommended the lawyer, a straightforward woman who did not waste time asking if I was sure about my decision. She took one look at me and said, "You seem like someone who has thought this through." I had. Those 3 days at my brother's place had given me back a clarity I had not felt in years. No walking on eggshells, no bracing for the next cutting remark, no wondering which version of me would be presented to the world that day. Just peace. My phone had not stopped vibrating. Text after text from Amanda, ranging from anger to pleading to manipulation. The pattern was predictable. First, she tried anger. "You are being childish and dramatic." Then came bargaining. "I will change. We can work this out." Finally, the guilt trips. "After everything I have done for you, this is how you repay me." I did not reply to any of them. There was nothing left to say. The divorce papers were served on Friday. On Saturday, my phone was ringing off the hook. I let most of the calls go to voicemail. But when my brother-in-law called, I picked up. "Man, she is calling everyone in the family, trying to rally people to her side," he said. "Telling them you had some kind of breakdown at the block party." "What kind of breakdown?" "According to her, you went crazy. Started yelling at her in front of everyone and stormed off with another woman." I almost laughed. That is not even close to what happened. I figured as much. "But she has your mom worried to death. You might want to give her a call." I called my mom that afternoon. She was worried, but not panicked, which told me she knew Amanda well enough to take her version of events with a grain of salt. "She says you have been acting differently lately, more distant," my mom said carefully. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine, Mom. Better than it has been in years, actually." She mentioned another woman. "There is no other woman. There is just me finally remembering that I deserve to be treated with respect by my own wife." My mom was quiet for a moment. "You know, Your dad and I always wondered about some of the things she would say about you at family gatherings. The little comments. We thought maybe it was just her sense of humor. It was not humor, Mom. No, I am starting to realize that. The calls to family members backfired on Amanda more than she probably anticipated. It turned out people had been noticing her behavior for years, but had not felt it was their place to say anything. Now that I was taking action, they felt free to share their observations. My cousin called to tell me she had been cringing at family dinners for the past 3 years. Every story she told about you made you sound like an incompetent child. We kept wondering why you never stood up for yourself. My uncle was more blunt. It is about time you grew a backbone. That woman has been walking all over you since the wedding. But the most interesting development happened the following Tuesday. I was checking my mail at the house, picking up some documents I needed for the lawyer, when Rachel approached me. The one who had started this whole chain of events. How are you holding up? She asked, genuinely concerned. Better than expected, I said. Thanks for asking. I heard she is telling people you left her for me. Yeah, I heard that too. Sorry you got dragged into this. She shrugged. I do not worry about neighborhood gossip. But I wanted you to know that several people have come up to me since the party, thanking me for saying what everyone was thinking. Really, Amanda's behavior was not just bothering you. It was making everyone uncomfortable. People were starting to avoid inviting the two of you to things because they did not want to watch her put you down. That hit me harder than I expected. Not only had I accepted the disrespect, I had allowed it to affect my relationships with others. The woman across the street told me she stopped inviting you guys to barbecues because she could not stand hearing your wife belittle you in front of her kids. I felt a mix of embarrassment and validation. Embarrassment that it had gotten so bad people were avoiding us. Validation that I was not crazy for thinking the behavior was unacceptable. Anyway, she continued, I just wanted you to know you did the right thing. And if you ever want to have that conversation we started at the party, when things settle down, I am still interested. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with my mail and a strange sense of possibility I had not felt in years. That evening, Amanda showed up at my brother's apartment. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for 20 minutes, probably rehearsing the speech she had prepared. When she finally knocked, I almost did not answer. We need to talk, she said when I opened the door. No, we do not. We need to get divorced. That is what the lawyers are for. This is ridiculous. You are throwing away our entire life together because I hurt your feelings at a party. I am ending a marriage where my feelings do not matter to my wife. Your feelings matter to me. When did my feelings matter to you? When you were making jokes about my appearance? When you were telling strangers I was incompetent? When you were treating our marriage like comedy material? She tried a different approach. Look, I know I can be critical sometimes, but it is only because I want you to be the best version of yourself. The best version of myself according to who? You? Because the person I am right now, the one who will not tolerate being disrespected, is the best version of myself I have been in years. You are different. Harder. This is not who you used to be. You are right. I used to be someone who accepted being treated poorly because I thought that was what marriage required. Now I am someone who knows better. I started to close the door, but she put her hand up to stop it. What if I promise to change? What if I go to therapy, work on myself, learn to communicate better? Then you will be a better person for your next relationship. This one is over. Please do not do this. I love you. No, you do not love me. You love having someone to manage. Someone to feel superior to. Someone who will not fight back when you tear them down. But you do not love me. I closed the door and listened to her cry on the other side for about 10 minutes before she finally left. It should have made me feel guilty, but it did not. It made me feel free. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were filed. Amanda had stopped calling, showing up, trying to rally family members to her cause. She had finally realized this was not a negotiation or a phase I was going through. It was me taking my life back. 6 months after the block party that changed everything, I was standing in my new kitchen, making coffee on a Saturday morning without anyone commenting that I was doing it wrong. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier. Clean, simple, no drama. My ex-wife had finally stopped contesting it when she realized the neighbors were not on her side. The house I had bought was 3 streets over from our old neighborhood. Close enough to maintain the friendships I had rediscovered, far enough to start fresh. My brother had asked me why I did not move across town for a complete change of scenery. Because I am not running away from anything anymore, I told him. This is my neighborhood too. The neighbors had been interesting to watch throughout the process. Some had taken sides, but most just seemed relieved that the uncomfortable dinner party dynamics were over. The couple next door to my old house told me they had started hosting people again now that they did not have to worry about witnessing a public put-down disguised as a marriage. My ex-wife had moved in with her sister across town. Word was she was telling people I had a midlife crisis. But fewer people were buying that story as time went on. When you spend years making someone look bad in public, people remember it when the truth comes out. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the window, I could see her. Rachel, the neighbor who had started this whole transformation with one honest conversation. "I hope you do not mind me dropping by," she said when I opened the door. "I was walking past and saw you were up." "Not at all. Do you want some coffee?" We sat on my back deck, talking about everything except the obvious elephant in the room. Work, travel plans, the new restaurant in town. A normal conversation between two adults who respected each other. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Sure. Do you ever regret it? Standing up for yourself that day?" I thought about it for a moment. I regret waiting so long to do it. But the decision itself? Never. Good. Because I have been wanting to ask you something for months now, but I did not want to complicate things while you were going through the divorce. I set my coffee mug down and gave her my full attention. "I know it might seem fast, but would you like to get dinner with me? A real dinner. Not block party small talk." The request was simple, direct, honest. Everything I had forgotten a relationship could be. "I would like that," I said. "I would like that a lot." We made plans for the following weekend. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed. Just two people who had seen something in each other worth exploring. After she left, I stayed out on my deck for another hour, thinking about how different my life felt. Now, no more bracing for criticism, no more wondering which version of me would be presented to the world, no more accepting disrespect as the price of companionship. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "Saw your ex at the grocery store yesterday. She looked miserable." I did not reply. Her happiness was no longer my responsibility, and her misery was not my victory. It was just the natural consequence of treating people poorly until they stop accepting it. That evening, I grilled a steak on my new patio and ate it while watching the sunset. Nobody criticized my cooking method or suggested I was doing it wrong. Nobody made jokes about my choice to eat alone or questioned if I really needed that much food. Just peace. Just respect. Just the life I had forgotten I deserved. The block party had happened 6 months ago, but it felt like a lifetime. The man who had stood there accepting public embarrassment as the price for keeping the peace was gone. In his place was someone who understood that respect is non-negotiable, that dignity is not optional, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to stop accepting less than you want. I raised my beer to the sunset and smiled. Tomorrow was looking pretty good. Comment: I really hope this story stays with you the way it stayed with me. I have come to realize that protecting your self-respect is one of the most important things you can do. When respect is missing in a relationship, it is okay to draw a clear line. You deserve to be treated with kindness and dignity every single day. Choosing to walk toward peace, even when it is hard, shows real strength. Healing begins the moment you stop accepting less than you deserve. Taking responsibility for your own happiness changes everything. Surrounding yourself with people who truly see your worth makes all the difference. I encourage you to think about where you might need to set healthier boundaries in your life. And remember, you are capable of creating the calm and respect you long for. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.